Hello everybody, welcome to more Seduce Me to the Demon War. I'm Cheetah, aka the Cheetah Chew. I'm pushing through my shitty voice. We're gonna continue Matthew's route. Let's load, please, thank you. Alright. Exhausted and tired, I marched to my room and opened the door, surprised to see Matthew already there. Huh? Matthew? Oh no! Oh my god! Oh, we were happily training just 2 minutes ago. Uh-oh. However, what was odd about him being in the room was not that he was there before me, but that he was staring at the fire, eyes glazed over in almost a pale blue tint. Something was going on. I walked over and placed my hand on Matthew's shoulder, slowly walking around him to look directly into his eyes. It was almost creepy to see, but he seemed almost dead. Matthew. I gently shook his body, trying to snap him out of whatever trance he was under, but I gasped as I spotted a blue ring around his neck. Oh yeah! Look at that shit! That was what we had! As I did, the air around me became colder and a little darker. What was going on? Panicked, I looked around, trying to pin down what was causing this. Matthew's voice brought me back to him, hearing his voice drawl out of his mouth like an emotionless doll. I gripped Matthew's shoulders tightly and shook him again. Matthew! Still nothing. I assume we want to kiss him and not smack him in the face. Yeah. I had to break him out of whatever spell was consuming his mind, and there was no way in hell I was going to smack him. Instead, I shook his head in my hands and pulled him into a kiss, locking lips with his and shutting my eyes. I didn't understand what made me do this, but I was determined to make it work. I waited and waited until Matthew finally wrapped his arms around me and leaned into the kiss, letting me know he possibly broke through. I opened my eyes to see his eyes closed, but his arms around my waist were secure and loving, just like how I remembered. As I slowly pulled away, Matthew opened his eyes and revealed their lovely ocean blue. Perfect. However, his cheeks were a lovely contrast of red. Oh, here we go. Suspicious. I'm suspicious of you, Shelties. Shenanigans that you're saying.
Hi.
I smiled a bit, giggling. Hey, what happened? Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. I was just looking at the fire. It's pretty warm.
Every part of me didn't believe him. Then again, something was wrong, and maybe Matthew was becoming a victim of it. I frowned and cupped his cheek, making him lean into it slightly. Are you sure? You looked like you were possessed. Matthew furrowed his eyebrows, unsure of what I meant. Did he really not remember? I now became concerned, desperate to know answers. Why was he acting so strangely? Matthew took my hands in his and held them gently, rubbing his thumbs over the tops of my hands.
Hey, is everything all right?
I almost glared. That was what I had asked him. I wasn't crazy. I knew something was off, and I had to try and figure out what. I squeezed Matthew's hands instead. Matthew, I'm serious. You were staring at the fire, and your eyes just looked glazed and stuff. Pressing his lips together, he looked down, trying to discern what I meant, as if he didn't want to do what I suggested, and he did. I pulled his hands, now worried. I didn't want him to assume I was making things up. You believe me, right? Matthew stared into my eyes, reading them as he nodded.
I do. I do. I don't know how to respond. I mean, I don't remember being in a trance.
As he said that, however, he suddenly curled over and held his head, hissing in pain. Matthew? Quickly, Matthew collapsed onto his knees and gripped his head, digging his fingers into his hair as I followed him down. Now I knew for sure something was definitely wrong. I cupped Matthew's face, trying to read his expression and trying to figure out what was wrong just from sight. A moment passed before Matthew let out a gasp of breath, opening his eyes wide and panting for some fresh air to enter his lungs. Oh gosh. His eyes painted his fear as if he had just encountered a nightmare within the moment that had passed. Matthew, what happened? Matthew wouldn't speak, furrowing his eyebrows and shaking his head.
I heard someone calling to me.
Oh, it's his mom! Calling to you? For a moment, I believed it to be his mother. Maybe he was hearing what I heard in the human world, but why didn't I hear it anymore? It made no sense. Matthew shook his head and gritted his teeth.
It sounded like my mother. But how could she...
I took Matthew's hands and held them to my chest, catching his attention. Hey, let's go ask the others about this. It's not too late to talk to them. Matthew suddenly shook his head and took his hands from mine, grasping my shoulders.
It's alright, really. I don't need their help. We can figure this out on our own.
Oh, Matthew. I had a really bad feeling about the situation. Matthew was getting put in trances, then getting headaches and hearing his mother's voice. Why was he so reluctant to get the help of his brothers? Oh gosh. I don't think it's a good idea to deal with this alone. Oh, I don't know what to do. Matthew, why do you do this? Shelton wants to insist. That's probably the smarter thing to do, although it's probably going to upset him. Oh, my nose is itchy. This was too mysterious and dangerous. We needed the help. Yeah, that is my feeling as well. Matthew, we need to... Oh.
Please, just trust me, okay?
Matthew stared deeply into my eyes, pleading silently for me to trust him. I bit my lips, still not completely sure that this was the right choice. As I slowly let out a whine of complaint, Matthew gripped harder on my shoulders, not enough to hurt me, but enough to emphasize his point.
Please.
Matthew seemed adamant. I swallowed my nerves and nodded slowly, taking in a breath and letting out a sigh. Matthew leaned forward and kissed my forehead, thankful that I was willing to trust him. However, trust wasn't the issue. I trusted Matthew very much. What I didn't trust was that whatever was trying to influence him and hurt him. I didn't want to leave this in the dark, and I didn't want us to hit a wall with this that could potentially hurt Matthew more or make him do something even more odd. I grimaced before standing up, helping Matthew up. Come on, let's head to bed. Matthew nodded, agreeing that right now sleep was something we probably needed. I led Matthew to bed and helped him in cuddling up to him and laying my head on his shoulder. Matthew?
Yeah?
Oh God. Are you sure you'll be okay?
I'm sure. I promise. I'll figure this out in no time.
I nodded once more before closing my eyes. I had to let him try. If all else failed, I could go to the others for help, but not unless it became dangerous. Oh, I feel like we need to save. Still, something felt wrong about this entire situation. First there was something wrong with me, but now there was something wrong with Matthew. We had the worst luck. You should have seen the other storylines, Jesus. I expected the night to take me away into a world of slumber, but was quietly awoken by Simon poking my side with a knife. What? I looked out of my side to see Simon waving his arms and pointing at the door, revealing it to be partially open with the familiar red eye peeking through it. I stared, suddenly wide-eyed, but Diana didn't move from her spot, knowing I spotted her. Did she want me to go over there? Simon pulled my hand, wanting me to go, so I snuck out of Matthew's arms and crept to the door, causing Diana to back away from it and give me the space I needed to leave the room. Diana?
Is everything all right?
Huh? Where was this coming from? I furrowed my eyebrows. Well, what do you mean? Diana pressed her lips together and looked into the room for a moment before looking back at me with a serious expression.
I was doing my usual routine around the castle, and felt somewhat of a disturbance in the air, like something was trying to make contact with someone here. It was a weak wave, but...
I stared surprised. Someone really was trying to contact Matthew. I became overjoyed to know that it was simple enough. Diana tilted her head at me, seeing my expression.
What? Did something happen?
Ooh, before I opened my mouth to speak, however, Matthew's plea echoed in my head. He wanted me to trust him. If I told Diana, I'd ruin his trust for me. I merely bit my lip, shaking my head. No, I'm just surprised is all. Yeah, like she's gonna believe that. Diana raised an eyebrow at me, but I didn't budge. I didn't want to be the one to say anything until Matthew needed me to. Despite it fighting against every mortal code in my body, I had to put some trust in Matthew. Eventually, Diana nodded before turning to leave.
I apologize for disturbing your sleep. Please, have a good night.
With that, Diana left me alone in the hall. I stared, mildly flabbergasted at the fact that she simply let it go. However, would she look into it more? I had to admit, I hoped so. She probably will. I returned to Matthew's arms that night, hoping that everything would be okay. Oh my God. The morning was unkind as I woke and yawned, feeling drowsiness still try to consume my mind and force it back to sleep. However, I had to train today, and so did Matthew. Speaking of Matthew, I turned my head to see Matthew rubbing his eyes, waking up alongside me. However, his grumble let me know that the night was not kind to him.
Is it morning already?
I nodded and gently leaned down, kissing Matthew's forehead. That seemed to lighten his mood as a happy smile danced across his lips and he let out a happy sigh.
Good morning.
Morning. I smiled as I hovered over Matthew's face, seeing his beautiful blue eyes gaze into my eyes through the blur of sleep. With a sweet, infectious smile, Matthew reached up a hand and cupped my cheek.
You are so pretty. You know that?
Oh, Matthew. I felt a blush creeping up on my face. The way he said it so casually made my heart flutter and had me forgetting about the world around us. It was like we were our own little universe for a short moment of time. I nuzzled at his hand and giggled. I didn't want the day to roll on to us getting ready to separate and train just yet. I wanted to sit back with Matthew and enjoy our time alone. No problems, no danger, just us. Matthew grew a small smirk before snaking his arms around me and pulling me against his chest, making me gasp and grab onto his shoulders, not wanting to crush him with my weight. However, Matthew smiled and squeezed me close.
No nightmare last night, huh?
As he said it, I realized it. There was indeed no nightmare for me last night. I had a peaceful, dreamless night. I suddenly smiled and looked down at Matthew with a happy nod. Shelties is gagging from the sweetness. Yeah, no nightmare. I had a good sleep. Matthew chuckled before leaning up and kissing me softly, just enough for me to feel it. As he pulled away, I became curious about his own night. What about you? Matthew's smile faltered a bit as I asked, but shook his head slightly and gained his smile back.
It was rough. I woke up a couple of times, but that was pretty much it.
I wake up like 1,000 times a night, so I feel you, man. There was more to the story, but I had to let it go. If he wanted me to trust him, then I had to with the full extent of my heart. I nodded and planted a light, feather-like kiss on his nose, making him chuckle beneath his breath. So what's the plan for you?
Well, I figured I could skip some training and just spend some time with you.
With a playful smirk, I grabbed the nearby pillow and gently bounced it on him, making him flail a bit.
Hey!
You know, training is important, Matthew. Matthew smirked and rolled us both over to have him on top of me, bouncing his own pillow on me. Gah!
I can totally train with you in a never-ending pillow fight!
Oh my god. Oh, it was on. I quickly grabbed my pillow and swung it at Matthew, landing on target and causing him to roll off me. With a grin, I arched my body in the opposite direction, hoping to land another hit on him, but Matthew quickly ducked and swung his pillow at me, hitting me with a soft, fluffy impact.
Gotcha!
The battle became intense as we were soon double-fisting pillows, trying to whack each other with our chosen weapons, while also avoiding the fireplace, the bench, and truly anything that looked expensive around the room. Yeah, Diana's gonna walk in on this. We're hashtag professional here. Regardless, we were immersed in our own world, duking it out with feathers and cloth as we lost track of time. God, here it comes. We barely even noticed the door open.
What's going on?
Yep. As Anna's voice rang in the air, I gasped in surprise and looked over to see the succubus holding 2 plates with stacks of pancakes on them. What frightened me and Diana was a sudden knife chucking itself in Diana's direction, causing her to sidestep and letting the knife rake through a stack, effectively nailing the pancakes to the wall beside her. Whoa! Hey! Diana looked, and I looked at Matthew, seeing him panting and posed in mid-throw. His eyes flashed back and forth between gold and blue, glaring hard at Diana, most likely in surprise from her sudden entrance. And once again, I was taken away from my fantasy and brought back to reality. Diana snarled and practically slammed the 2 plates she was holding on the table, glaring daggers at Matthew.
What in the 7 hells was that about?
Diana! Sorry, guys, I don't have much inflection in my voice because it's rough. As Diana took a step forward, Matthew suddenly shook his head and realized who was approaching him and he essentially attacked, causing him to step back and place his hands in front of him.
Whoa! Whoa, hold on!
We should probably defend him. Yeah, all of the demons have that kind of voice filter when they're in their demon form. Hers is pretty cool, Anthony. Also, hi, Anthony. We're gonna defend him. I quickly reacted, not wanting Diana and Matthew to start fighting. Besides, Diana took us by surprise. Matthew couldn't have known. I'm more worried about the pancakes that are now stuck to the wall and wasted. Who wastes good pancakes like that? I rushed over and placed myself between Matthew and Diana, holding my arms out to stop her. Diana, hold on! Diana stopped and glared down at me, now turning her frustration towards me.
What?
I opened my mouth to speak before Matthew rushed around me and pressed his hands together, bowing his head.
I'm sorry. I didn't know it was you. I thought it was an attacker and...
An attacker in my home? They would be dead before they even set foot through the gates!
Yeah, Diana's pretty adept at ripping people to shreds. I mean, it is what it is. Fraggy! Fraggy, my darling, somebody hit the Fraggy command. Fraggy, I'm so happy you're here. It's been too long. I like Diana's hair. I looked to Matthew, seeing him grit his teeth and press his hands together hard, trying to gain some form of forgiveness from the succubus who seemed to want his throat cut open. Diana snarled quietly before slapping his hands away and gripping his chin, making him stare up at her.
The next time you dare to attack me will be the last time you feel your heart beating in your chest.
Oh, calm down, Diana. With a threatening scowl, Diana pushed Matthew back and away from her, causing her to turn and walk away towards the exit of the room. I, however, rushed to Matthew, catching him before he tripped on his own feet.
Eat, then get to training. Don't waste time.
Diana finally left, leaving me and Matthew lost in our own space once again. This time we were awake and aware of what was going on, mildly ashamed of the delusion we placed ourselves in before the sudden surprise from Diana. Matthew rubbed his head, looking to the floor.
Man, I really screwed up.
We're gonna comfort him, obviously. I knew that he messed up, but he needed to get himself together and fix his mistakes so he could move on and figure out the problems he already had. I wrapped my arms around him, nuzzling his shoulder. It's alright. I rubbed his shoulders as he rested his forehead against mine.
How the heck do I deserve you?
I merely smiled and kissed his cheek. Because you love me and I love you. With a chuckle, Matthew kissed my cheek and kind and nodded.
Right.
Matthew and I turned to our breakfast and ate what we could, with Matthew taking the plate he managed to attack. The pancakes almost slipped off the knife that was still embedded in the wall, causing Matthew to run to catch it in his empty plate. He didn't eat it and merely left it there, avoiding it like it had some sort of poison in it. My laughter. I know my voice sounds like shit. What is it with my laugh that you guys are so obsessed with? Y'all are adorable. We eventually separated to train, letting the day roll. I was excited to see what training we would do today. However, as I walked to the great hall to meet with Rabbit, I bumped into someone.
Oh no! Sorry, I didn't mean to hit you.
Oh, who's this? It's a new character. Looking over who had collided with me, I was surprised to see a young man in some sort of flowing cloth garb, waving his hands in front of me in a worry. What was wrong? He just bumped into me. It was an accident for sure. It's alright. Despite my reassurance, the boy bowed and apologized once again.
I really am truly sorry.
That's enough, Bajang.
Bajang! I quickly looked over to see Diana walking towards me with crossed arms, looking to the boy he had flinched, as he flinched at his name. Bajang looked up and jumped at the sight of Diana beside me.
Rebel Queen! I have a message from my lady.
I know. Come along, and I will hear it.
Diana gestured Bajang to follow her as she nodded to me.
I apologize for keeping you. Good luck with training.
I could only nod before Diana walked off with the boy behind her. He seemed nice. I wondered for a moment who he was, but shook my head. A moment in time. I continued my journey to the great hall and turned into the room, peering in to expect to see my trainer ready for me. That, unfortunately, wasn't the case. Rabbit stood in the middle of the room, his staff in front of her, while formed a semicircle around her were pig fawn demons. Ones that very much resembled the ones I saw in the vision the boys gave me about their past. Yeah, those pig assholes, man. Why were they here, though? I assume that she's doing something and can handle herself, so I think we're just gonna watch. I was lost in what was happening, but something in my gut told me to stay put. Following my instincts, I watched as Rabbit stepped back, gripped her staff hard with the imp demons, cackling quietly around her. A large blue light began to glow from the crystal at the end of her staff, causing the imps to turn and become distracted by it. As they did, however, Rabbit swung her staff in an arc, causing a large wave of ice spray to forward and engulf them. I stared in shock as the imps became encased in ice, frozen in time and space. What made my mind completely break in awe was Rabbit lifting up the end of her staff and tapping on the surface of the ice. The bodies of the imps suddenly began to crack and crumble before dissolving into the ice as if they were never there. What the hell? I took another step in, trying to take in what had just happened. What kind of ice did Rabbit trap them in? Why were they there in the first place? What was going on? Rabbit turned over her shoulder and gasped, seeing me come in. As she did, the ice disappeared, evaporating into the air. Huh?
Oh, I'm sorry. I
stared at Rabbit, confused as ever, as she turned around and let out a sigh.
I'm sorry. I was doing some training of my own. I'm usually not on the battlefield in war, but since the next battle will be our last, we need to have as many people fighting as we can.
Agreed. I instantly shook my head. It was understandable. I wasn't the only one allowed to train, after all. It's fine. Sorry for interrupting. Rabbit laughed a bit, hugging her staff to her body. It was pretty cute to see her stand up to the illusionary imps, but she seemed to handle herself well. After a moment, however, she shook her head and cleared her throat.
Anyway, we should start your training for the day. Can't let this time go to waste.
I nodded, summoning my guardian and readying myself. This time, Rabbit pointed her staff out and caused a large group of imps to appear, ready to slice into me and my animal guardian. I smirked, knowing how easy this would be. Upon my command, my guardian leapt forward and began to claw through the group, dodging their swords and spears, making sure to rip through each one as they came. As one fell and turned into mist, another would emerge to take its place. It slowly became a practice of endurance. My animal kept fighting, but I felt myself slowly becoming weaker with each attack and movement. It had happened the day before, but the battles had been shorter and were divided in with many breaks in between. Yes, endurance is important. Today, however, had me go through wave upon wave of imps until afternoon when I felt drained completely of energy. Soon my animal guardian dispelled itself, unable to maintain its form without my energy, leaving me defenseless. However, Rabbit spun her staff in the air, willing the imps to vanish. She walked over me with a smile, most likely proud of what work I'd done.
I'm very shocked to see how long you managed to keep fighting. Many people would have dropped halfway through, but you pushed forward.
Nice. Thanks. In truth, I didn't want to give up no matter what had happened. This was training its stamina, was a key part of defending myself. Rabbit looked to the window, seeing the light of the afternoon slowly drift to the night.
Why don't we take a break for now? Then we'll do one last round before your training is over. All right?
I nodded, going to the far corner of the room and sitting down, wanting to shut my eyes for a moment and take a nap to regain my energy. I barely noticed the figure running into the room and approaching Rabbit.
My lady?
Bajang's one of hers. I opened an eye, looking up to see Bajang looking at Rabbit with a slight grimace on his expression. Rabbit turned to him and placed her staff to her side, tilting her head and furrowing her eyebrows.
Bajang, what is it?
Well, you see...
Rabbit stepped forward and checked Bajang's face, looking for something.
What's wrong? Did she take your energy?
Oh, no. She didn't. She refused to take any from me. But she gave me another message to send back to you.
Rabbit waited as Bajang took a breath and straightened up, calm from the flustered expression he carried earlier. Whatever he had to say must have been important.
She wants to speak with you alone tomorrow morning, before anything is settled.
Tomorrow morning? Why not tonight?
Bajang rubbed his hands, another grimace painted on his face.
Well, she said she had plans later tonight, so she can't.
With whom? Wait, never mind. I don't wish to know.
With a sigh, Rabbit turned and hugged her staff.
Thank you, Bajang. You're dismissed for the night.
Oh, thank you, my lady.
With that, Bajang bowed and turned, letting Rabbit sigh to herself, shaking her head.
Why do we have to keep discussing this?
It's probably better not to say anything? Fuck it. I couldn't help but be curious. Rabbit looked over at me with a surprised face before pressing her lips together and looking away.
It's nothing to worry about. Just a minor topic we need to chat about. It's nothing.
With the tone of her voice, it was definitely something large. However, Rabbit wasn't willing to spill the beans just yet. I let it go for now, knowing that I would find out sooner or later, regardless of the fact. But Shang finally left as Rabbit let out a sigh and walked back to me, a desperate look for some sort of distraction in her eyes. Whatever Diana needed to talk to her about really riled her up. Still, I refused to let it get the best of me. I was certain that I would perfect fighting with my guardian and forget about whatever they were chatting about with ease.
Are you ready to go again?
I nodded, sitting up to go once more and shaking out my nerves. I was getting tired, but my day wasn't over. I trained into the night like I usually did. This time, however, Rabbit seemed to be rougher with her obstacles and attacks, letting out stress from the situation she wouldn't tell me about. I felt a little bad that she was holding it in, but understood why. As Rabbit and I finally relaxed, Rabbit smiled at me, exhausted.
You're getting better. That's good.
I grinned and nodded, happy to know that there was improvement. As I turned to leave, however, Rabbit stopped me.
Wait,
Huh? What is it? I turned to see Rabbit rubbing one of her ears nervously.
Can you come a little later to practice tomorrow? You know that Diana is coming to discuss something, and, well...
She didn't want me to overhear it. My curiosity was piqued, but I nodded regardless. Alright, I'll come by later. With a smile, I left Rabbit and made my way back to my room. I slowly padded back to my room, tired from the day. I needed rest and I needed the comfort of my bed and Matthew's arms around me. As I walked in, however, I took in a sight I did not expect to see. I'm going to assume it's all Simon's fault. Yep. Matthew held Simon in a full-body chokehold, crushing his body like a stress ball and glaring into his beady red eyes.
I'm gonna rip you apart!
Oh my god. Matthew! I rushed in and grabbed Matthew's hands, prying them apart and letting Simon slip from between them and onto the ground. Simon let out a squeak before running out of the room. Matthew, still for some reason enraged, took a step to follow him before he slammed my hand onto his shoulder.
Get back here!
Matthew, stop! I grabbed tight on Matthew's shoulder, causing him to turn to me and letting me grab on the other shoulder. As I looked to his... As I got a good look to his eyes, I gasped at the sight. His eyes were full of rage and anger as he panted in place. Whatever Simon did really made him go off the edge, or something was influencing him again. I suddenly became afraid, shaking underneath his gaze. Every fiber of my body completely began to spaz out as I became locked in his angry glare. What was happening to me? I opened my mouth to try and speak, but no sound would dare come out of my vocal cords. It was like I was too frightened to press him or stop him. As Matthew continued to pant for air and stare at me, something in his mind slowly melted, causing his eyes to widen in realization of what he had done and what he was about to do to Simon. The strange hold on my body faded away as his muscles relaxed, trying to breathe and regain control of whatever had clouded his judgment. As it finally became apparent that he had to return to sanity, Matthew's eyes began to droop in sadness.
What am I doing?
Matthew pulled away from me, placing his hands in between us and stepped back, staring at me in deep regret. I tried to step forward to try and comfort him, but he raised a hand to stop me, walking slowly over the bed and sitting down, grasping his head.
Something happened to me. I don't know what.
Have fun! Thanks for stopping by, Fregs. I frowned as I slowly moved and sat next to him. In shame, Matthew covered his face with his hands and curled over his knees, digging his fingers into his forehead.
I keep hearing my mother's voice telling me to come home and save her. Whenever I do, I completely lose control of myself. I can't remember what I did or why I did it, but I always manage to do something wrong.
I grimaced, remembering the random attack on Diana. I placed my hand on the shoulder and he shuddered again and shook his head.
I gotta fix this. There's gotta be some way to stop it from happening to me.
Matthew. It was painful to see him struggling. Still, I couldn't understand why he had to fight this alone. Why not go to the others for help? Matthew let out a sigh and slumped his shoulders further.
And let them help me? Like they've always done?
As Matthew turned to me, I could practically see the shame in his eyes as he spoke.
Every time I was in trouble, they'd always come and help. Every time I do something, I'm treated like a damn kid.
Well, this is something serious, Matthew. Matthew turned his head away and gritted his teeth, forming fists and laying them on his knees, tightening them in aggravation.
There's a reason why I didn't ask them to help with the wedding. I don't want them babying me and doing everything like I'm some sort of stupid moron who needs everything done for him. I want to do this on my own. I can figure this out without their help. I'm not even the youngest, but they still treat me like I am, even Damien. I don't want that anymore.
I was speechless. Did Matthew really feel that kind of pressure from his brothers? My mind went back to the first day I'd met them, how Eric treated Matthew like a little boy despite Matthew being close to his age. As the grimace of realization appeared on my lips, Matthew let out a shaky sigh.
I can't ask for their help. I'm sorry.
I should smack him and tell him this is not a thing! You should! This is serious. God, punch him. I felt terrible for Matthew. He definitely acted like a kid, but he seemed like Sorry, guys. He definitely acted like a kid, but it seemed like only I remembered that he wasn't one. After all, I had been with this man for over 2 years of my life. I wrapped my arms around him, hugging him to me and making him gasp in surprise.
Huh?
I buried my face in his shoulder, silently apologizing to him with a soft kiss on his neck. Slowly, Matthew wrapped his arms around me as well, taking in a breath and relaxing once more within my arms. A peaceful moment of silence passed between us before Matthew softly pulled away and looked me in the eyes.
I don't understand why you like me at all, you know?
What? Confused, I stared into Matthew's eyes, trying to find the origin of where his statement came from. Matthew, however, took my hands and grasped them in his, looking down at them.
I love you so much. But I'm not mature like James or the others. I don't understand at all how someone like me could be remotely likable.
Oh, Matthew, you've got plenty of great qualities. Your hair's fantastic, for one. I don't know. Stop. I glared, not wanting him to degrade himself. As he looked back up at me, he flinched at my stare, but I needed to get him to see that I loved him and cared for him. My brain died. It didn't matter that he wasn't like his brothers. He was mine, and I loved him. I squeezed his hands, locking his gaze to mine. I love you for you, Matthew. I don't care what your brothers act like or how you're not like them. I don't care. I fell in love with you, not them. Matthew remained silent, staring deep into my eyes and taking in everything that I was saying with a broken but hopeful gaze. He really cared about me and didn't want to hurt me, but I didn't want him to hurt either. Whatever this is, whatever this thing is you're trying to control, we'll fix this. But don't you dare degrade yourself like that. I'm afraid that kissing him will lead to a scene that I cannot play here. That I cannot play on the stream because of reasons. And this choice is not on his walkthrough, which says to me that it probably is. So we're going to go with the nicer option. I pressed my forehead to his, staring into his blue irises, and let my words burn into his mind. I love you, Matthew. Matthew remained silent for a moment, letting the air take hold of the sound before he very slowly smiled and nodded, nuzzling his head against mine.
I love you too.
We remained there, taking in the sounds of our synchronized breathing and letting our hearts eventually beat as one. Yeah, Shelties, I figured that out on my own. Thank you for the heads up, though. I appreciate it. We would get through this. We would. Sleeping that night filled us with determination for the next day. I was hopeful, reading that everything was going to be alright. But everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked. Of course, not everything turns out the way we want. Yeah, pretty much. Oh my god. The morning came at last, rising me from my sleep. Surprisingly, I was full of energy, ready to go and take on the day's training. However, I quickly realized that I wasn't alone. Matthew? I sat up and looked around, not seeing him anywhere in the room. Worry crept into my mind. What if he left to do something he was influenced to do? What if he tried to figure out a way to force the influence out of him? I gripped my bedsheets to remove it from my body when I looked up to see the door swing open, revealing Matthew holding 2 plates of food for me.
Good morning!
Oh, he seems chipper. I became dumbstruck. Matthew? What was up with him, and why was he up so early? He wasn't exactly an early bird. Matthew grinned as he walked over and presented a plate of delicious-looking fruit, eggs, bacon, toast, and pancakes I had ever seen. My mouth went agape at the mere sight and smell, and I slowly took it from Matthew's hands. Matthew, when did you make this?
This morning, duh! When else would I have been able to make it?
I looked up at him. He seemed very happy and cheerful despite everything that happened the night before. Did he manage to drive out the influence? As I noticed the dark circles under his eyes, I could tell the night had become somewhat of a struggle, so maybe that was indeed the case. Still, something in my gut pressed me to be cautious. Something was entirely right about this situation, even though seeing Matthew being happy made me happy too. I slowly began to dig in, savoring every delicious bite and almost forgetting my worries about it. I would not eat that food, Anderson. Wow, this is amazing. Matthew let out a happy sigh and nodded.
Awesome. Well, I'm gonna go to training now.
I suddenly shook my head, trying to take in what he just said. He was going out to training now? I looked at him as he began to turn around, holding out an arm for him. Whoa, 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 hold on
Bye!
there. Despite my protest, Matthew left the room, practically skipping out of it. What the hell? Something was now definitely wrong. I lowered my plate and stood, racing towards the door, but was stopped by Diana, who was about to step in. Wow!
Oh, I'm sorry.
Diana looked at me up and down before looking at the plate of food I left on my bed and looking at the plates of food she had in her hand, obviously meant for me and Matthew.
When did you...
I shook my head. Diana didn't know Matthew was making me food? I became more and more worried. Diana stepped in and placed her plates on the nearby table, crossing her arms in concern.
All right. Do you now wish to tell me what is going on?
Yeah. Diana is calling us on our bullshit. Alright, bye, Shelties. Thanks for stopping by. I naturally bit my lip. I couldn't tell her, but something about this warning me that whatever was influencing Matthew could have gotten worse. I began to internally panic, but I kept a look of calm on my face. Matthew just made me breakfast, that's all.
When was this?
I grimaced, looking away. Apparently this morning. Diana shook her head and pressed her fingers into her temple, slowly exhaling an irritated sigh.
That boy is seriously concerning me now.
Do we say nothing? Don't call him a boy. I didn't mean to explode, but after hearing Matthew's worries the night before, I couldn't help but naturally defend him. Diana stared wide-eyed at me, mostly likely wondering where my sudden outburst came from. Even though I had vocally challenged her, Diana let out a sigh and crossed her arms.
Regardless, I'll have people watch over him. If he does anything out of the ordinary, I will be the first to know.
Diana gave me a hard stare for a moment before turning and leaving the room. I became torn. Matthew didn't want help, but it seemed like he very much needed it. What if this was something I was overreacting from? What if he was hiding something vitally important? I scraped my head and shook it. Stop it, calm down. That's right, I had to calm down first. This isn't going to be easy, but the truth would come out one way or another. I ate my food and prepared for the day, praying that I would not hear of Matthew killing someone. Yeah, really. Alright, let me save here. It looks like we're about to experience whatever these two have been talking about behind our backs. Oh my goodness. Hold on. I arrived at the Grand Hall, expecting to see Rabbit waiting for me. However, I didn't expect Diana to be there, locked in a heated argument with her. I quickly hugged the wall, wondering what was going on before I peeked into the room.
Rabbit, what you are asking is impossible.
Impossible? How is liberating my kind impossible?
I know you wish to change the caste system, and I do as well, but it cannot be done overnight. Can you understand the consequences of such a sudden change?
What does it matter? We are days away from taking control of this world, and what we demand will become ultimate law. The world will listen and obey every word we say, every word you say.
It's not really that simple.
You overestimate the power we would have, Rabbit.
I felt frozen. What was happening? I thought Diana was with Rabbit and wanting change. Why would she hesitate? Rabbit was fighting for a just cause. The arguing continued.
No, I am not overestimating our power. I know exactly what we should be able to accomplish. You are just too afraid to go through with it.
Afraid? Of course I'm afraid. Do you know what a sudden change in the system would do to everyone? What it would do to your kind?
We would be free.
You would be slaughtered!
As Diana's voice suddenly boomed, the air began to quake from it. I stared as Diana's form suddenly became covered with black and purple flame, glowing gold eyes peering towards the suddenly fearful rabbit.
Not everyone will be as kind as I am. Not everyone will unlock the chains of your people's limbs just because I demand it. What you demand will sign the death wish of every animal demon on this godforsaken plane. You know what happened in the human world when the slaves of that world demanded their freedom? Millions were slaughtered, and they are still not equal to other humans. Why not learn that lesson?
Oh, she's got a point. I was astonished. Was Diana seriously comparing animal demons to slaves of the human world's past? Rabbit stared, but still fearful of the suddenly intimidating Diana. Watched as Diana slowly calmed down and let out a sigh.
I know that what I ask is beyond horrid, but you need to understand. A ruler can rule, but the people beneath them have voices and hands of their own, strong enough to disobey and do as they desire. I may demand the immediate liberation of your kind, but they may see liberation as a call to slaughter, out of desperation to keep what they believe is theirs. I swear on my bloodline that I will fix this caste system, but you cannot demand that I force it overnight, unless you desire the blood of your kind to spill over the earth.
Without giving Rabbit a chance to respond, Diana turned and marched towards the exit. Before I could react, she reached the doorway, seeing me and stopping in her tracks. She didn't say anything. She simply arched around me and left down the hall, lowering her head as she vanished around the corner. I turned back into the room to see Rabbit turn to face out one of the large windows, gripping her staff to her body and biting her lower lip. This must have been so hard on her, but I wasn't sure exactly who to side with. I know exactly who to side with, but whatever. Both had valid points. Rabbit and the other animal demons would deserve to be free, but what if Diana was right? Rabbit's people would be killed the minute Diana's liberating demand left her mouth. Even worse, they would never be able to reach that equality that Rabbit wanted. I could only grimace at the situation. It was a tough one, and who knew where it would go after the war? I was positive it would work out in the end, but I knew it would be a tough battle to face regardless of what they decided to do. Taking a breath, I walked in and made my way towards Rabbit as she lowered her head, placing a hand on her shoulder. Are you okay?
No. No, I am not.
Rabbit took a deep breath and shook her head, wiping her eyes and smiling her usual kind smile to me, making me frown a bit at the sight.
I just thought that I could make a change in this war. But apparently not.
Rabbit. Rabbit stared at me, searching for something in my eyes, then finally letting out a sigh and waving her staff and forming a bluish mist in her hand. As it finally disappeared and revealed something I did not expect to see. In Rabbit's hand was a black and red iron collar, broken around the tag and on the back. This wasn't what sent a wave of shock down my spine, however. Around the inner border were metal spikes, dulled from rust and time, but I could tell that at one point they'd been sharp enough to pierce the wearer's neck. I had a feeling she probably wore that. What is this? Rabbit placed it on the windowsill with a sigh, staring intently at it in remembrance.
That was my breeding collar.
Breeding collar? I stared wide-eyed at Rabbit, understanding or at least putting together what that could have meant. She was a slave for breeding? As I stared, Rabbit let out a sad chuckle and shook her head.
I was born into a large family of animal demons. Rabbits like myself. However, we weren't born to have normal lives. We were bred to become slaves and servants to people like Diana.
I couldn't believe it. Did Diana own her at one point? It was hard to think about, but Rabbit continued.
I was given just enough to live and survive by my parents until I became an adult. Then I was taken to a breeding brothel with a handful of my brothers and sisters. They said that my magic was desirable to pass to offspring. As part of the membership, they welded this onto my neck, hoping to keep me from being disobedient.
I instinctively rubbed my neck, disgusted at the story despite knowing that she was going to be okay in the end.
Of course, when they found out that I was still a virgin, they decided to instead use me to stimulate their clients and male slaves.
Jeez. Rabbit ran her hand over the mask that covered her mouth, shutting her eyes and tracing lines over her cheeks and down her chin.
The day they cut open my mouth was the day Diana rescued me from captivity. I didn't think I was going to survive, let alone have my face become normal ever again. But Diana did everything she could to heal my wounds and reverse what my keepers did to me.
Well, I know that we were asking why she wears a mask. There's your answer. At that moment, Rabbit slipped 2 fingers into her mask and lowered it, revealing 2 scars that traveled from each edge of her lips across her cheeks like a wide smile, and 2 more scars down her jaw like a puppet's mouth. I covered my mouth, unable to form any words, but unable to stop the gas that erupted from my throat at the sight. Rabbit quickly covered her mouth with her mask again and looked out the window in longing.
I was brought back here with all of the slaves Diana had freed and was given care. I saw a deep compassion in Diana. She cared about people below her status and wanted everyone to be equal and free. So I joined the rebellion and eventually became a leader alongside her.
Slowly, Rabbit's eyes began to turn from warm and longing to cold and anger.
At least that's what I thought.
What do you mean? Rabbit looked at me and gripped her staff in a white-knuckle grip, gritting her teeth before speaking and answering my question.
As soon as this war is over, Diana will take over and become queen of this world, unifying everyone under her banner. However, with that kind of power, she can change the way my people are treated. But she refuses to use her power to do so. She doesn't understand what we have gone through, what my people have had to endure for eons. We are bred to be slaves, servants, war fodder, and we have no say in the matter. We deserve our freedom. We deserve to be free. We should not be forced to wait for her to come around to it.
Rabbit was very passionate about her desire for her demon kind. It was beyond admirable. However, Diana's warning echoed in my mind, reminding me of what she predicted if she didn't do as Rabbit asked. It was a difficult decision to be in. I understood Rabbit perfectly, but I also became fearful of Diana's prediction. The demon world was a very different playing field than the human world, so I expected demons to be more ruthless about their traditions. It was hard to think about, but the situation revolved around both ends of the risk spectrum. It was right, but it could be deadly. Rabbit shook out her head, letting out a sigh.
I'm sorry. I shouldn't be telling you this. It was a private matter, and...
It's alright. I understood perfectly. The situation was indeed a mess, but something told me they would all be able to figure it out. Rabbit and Diana were smart women, after all. Rabbit looked at me in surprise before smiling slightly and nodding.
Right.
Rabbit finally shook her head and let out a sigh.
Well, now that I'm done with my, business, shall we get to training?
With a nod from me, we spent the day forgetting about what had happened and focused on working on my stamina and power with my animal guardian. It became easier to direct and even more became intelligent enough to defend me if something tried to sneak up behind me. I was thankful for my new companion and felt ready for the siege ahead. Oh, jeez. I was gonna stop here, but I feel like this scene needs to happen. I quickly walked to my room, wanting to make it there before Matthew. As I turned the corner to the hall my room was in, however, a large number of shouts echoed.
Grab him! Don't let him get away!
I asked Matthew.
Let go of me!
I stared wide-eyed as guards rushed into my bedroom and dragged Matthew out of it by his arms. I was even more surprised to see him slightly battered and covered in blood. What? I stepped forward to rush in and see what was going on, but a hand stopped me and pulled me back. I looked over and stared at Sam, gripped my shoulder, glaring ahead at his brother. Sam, what's going on?
Matthew did something really fucking stupid.
Ripping Sam's hand from my shoulder, I turned around and glared, almost snarling in anger. What do you mean? What did he do? Sam looked at me, unfazed by my anger, and walked forward ahead of me, following the group of soldiers and Matthew down the hall. I did the same, now desperate to know what was going on. As we arrived at the Great Hall, Matthew was tossed into the center of the room where Rabbit had constructed a large magic circle. As Matthew fell to his hands and knees on it, the circle activated and formed a large barrier around him. Frantic, Matthew rushed to the wall, setting into them to hopefully be set free. He even formed multiple knives to try and tear through the walls, only ending up with them ricocheting and landing on the floor.
Release me! No!
Matthew! I rushed forward, trying to touch the barrier, but was forcefully pulled back by Amin and Iridessa. I flailed in their arms, struggling against their hold, but became still as Diana entered the room with a large bloody handkerchief in her hand.
You come into my castle, eat my food, rest in my rooms, and have the utter gall to kill one of my guards and try to steal war plans?
No, it couldn't have been Matthew, you idiot. I stared at Matthew as he locked eyes with Diana, sneering and pressing up against the barrier.
Well, well, well. If it isn't the Queen of the Rebellion. I gotta tell you, you look like crap after all these years.
Who is this? Diana's face remained stone cold as she passed the handkerchief to one of the nearby guards and stepped forward, pressing her hand to the barrier.
Lux.
On her word, the barrier suddenly began to brighten with lightning, shocking Matthew within it. Matthew, no! I began to struggle more, wanting this to stop. Soon enough, it did as Diana pulled her hand away from the barrier and glared into it. Matthew, having been electrocuted, fell to his hands and knees, panting wildly.
I can smell you, Demon Lord.
I froze. The Demon Lord? He was behind this? Yes. Matthew's mother, man. I thought it was his mother, but the Demon Lord? I looked back at Matthew, seeing him chuckle despite being in utter pain.
You figured me out, huh? You may have locked me away in my castle, but my bond to my blood is unbreakable.
Matthew pounced off the ground and slammed into the barrier wall, grinning from ear to ear at Diana.
And when you come, I will be ready. I know all of your little plans. We'll make sure that I completely destroy your precious army, one pathetic soldier at a time. Once I do, I'll make Zakeru my heir, and finally take over the rest of this godforsaken plane. For good.
This time, however, Diana smirked and tapped the barrier between Matthew's eyes, her irises brightening to a sadistic gold color.
And this is where you fail in war, Demon Lord. Who said we ever wrote anything down about our plans?
Matthew stared, astonished as Diana, before snarling madly. Yeah, really? Like, do you really think they'd write it down?
You're lying!
Test me, mongrel. I will prove it on the day we lay siege upon your pathetic castle and dominate your puny army.
Despite how twisted the situation was, the rebel leaders and guards in the room began to nod and smirk at Matthew in agreement with Diana's words. Diana, however, pressed her face against the barrier.
And I swear to you, this war will end with you dying by the hands of a succubus.
The guards around Diana cheered as Matthew continued to glare hard at Diana, clawing at the barrier wall to try and get her to no avail. Diana straightened back up and scoffed.
As for your son, we'll need to do a little surgery.
Surgery? I pulled at Irene and Irides's hand, staring at Diana like she was a madwoman. Surgery? What the hell did she mean? Without another word, Diana placed her hand back on the barrier and sent another wave of electric shocks into the barrier before Matthew finally passed out entirely. No! At last, Iridessa and Irene released me, letting me rush forward and kneel at the barrier, pressing my hands against it and peering into Matthew lying unconscious on the floor. I looked up at Diana as she turned and glared at her. Why did you do that? Diana glared back at me before turning away from me, crossing her arms.
Why did you hide this from me?
No, I deserve an explanation. As Diana turned back to me in my explosion, I felt my body instantly freeze in fear underneath her sudden golden gaze.
And one of my men deserves not to be dead. Because of your little secret, this boy managed to lose control to whatever has been possessing him and killed one of my top-ranking officers in order to find my decoy battle plans.
I let it sink in. Matthew had killed someone. The influence on him really forced him to kill someone. I couldn't believe it. As Diana released me from her enthrallment, I buckled to my hands and knees, panting for air.
Was hiding this worth it? Was his precious pride truly worth the life of one of my men?
I shut my eyes, knowing how wrong this situation was. Matthew was trying. He was fighting to stop whatever was taking control of him. He needed to do it on his own. However, before I could think of speaking back, James and Sam stepped forward in front of me, blocking me from Diana.
Forgive him, Diana. He wasn't in control of himself.
And now you're defending him?
Shut the fuck up! You don't understand what he's been through.
And I don't care! One of my men is dead because of him! Controlled or not, it was his hands that took his life. No amount of pride can justify that.
She's kinda right. The brothers silenced themselves as I took everything in. Matthew had killed someone. The brothers understood, and Diana had essentially been betrayed. Part of me screamed that this was all my fault. I didn't open my mouth to fix this. I didn't let anyone know what Matthew was going through. However, Matthew was desperate to do this himself, even though he failed in the end. I lowered my head to the ground, gritting my teeth and trying to stop myself from crying. Carrie and Twyla rushed to my side, wrapping their arms around me in an attempt to comfort me, but I couldn't feel anything but despair for what was going on. Yeah, we're not going to apologize, apparently, because that's a thing. Despite everything, however, it was my choice. I trusted Matthew and I wanted to help him in any way I could. He was the man I loved, and if I didn't trust him, then I truly couldn't deserve his love. I gripped at the ground and glared up once more at Diana, seeing her stare down at me in expectancy. I'm sorry for what happened, but I'm not sorry for hiding it. I felt her glare slightly at me, but I let the feeling roll off my back. I hid it because I loved him and believed in him. This was a terrible circumstance, but I had to try and believe him. Matthew wanted to be self-reliant. He wanted to stop having his brothers come and rescue him, and if you can't see why he needed to do that, then you need to open your eyes. Silence lingered in the room as Diana continued to bore her eyes into my soul. At last, Diana set out an irritated sigh.
Enough. We need to figure out how to break this hold the Demon Lord has on him.
Everyone in the room seemed to agree. I rubbed my face and slowly stood, agreeing as well and now ready to fix what had happened. Diana looked to the guards over her shoulder and barked orders.
A chair, a bucket of sweet flowers, and a knife.
The soldiers nodded and saluted their queen before rushing off. Diana took her head and placed her hand on the barrier.
What on earth could have made the control so strong?
His mother.
Yeah, he read my mind. Sorry, Matthew. Everyone looked at Damien, seeing him look intently at his fallen brother with worry.
I can hear her voice, pleading with him to wake up. She keeps apologizing for making him do what he did.
So his mother is to blame?
No. The Demon Lord is still the one who made him do what he did. The mother was a weakness of his, and only amplified his control.
Then it stayed in Matthew's unconscious body as the soldiers from before rushed in and placed the chair beside her and the bucket beside it. Diana slowly sat down and crossed her legs, holding her hand out and feeling a knife being placed into it by a third guard.
We need to figure out how to block his mind from the Demon Lord's control. Once we do that, we can try to dispel it, while the Demon Lord's power isn't using Matthew's energy.
Taking a purple peach-shaped fruit from the large basket, Diana began to peel it, slice it open, and revealing a black center. However, her focus remained on Matthew.
It will take me some time, but I think I can manage it.
Are you sure?
I am. Everyone may go and sleep.
Everyone slowly nodded and began to leave the room. I, however, stood still, not wanting to leave Matthew alone. As Diana noticed me, she glared softly.
Go to your room and rest. I will call you if something happens.
Her words were venomous, warning me of the thin line I was walking across. As she placed a fruit slice in her mouth, I conceded defeat and left the room, staring at Matthew in utter worry before I exited. Alrighty. I'm gonna end this here. My voice is really beginning to die out. But I will be around tonight. We'll be playing more Skyrim. Until then, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys soon. Bye!